Welcome to Find Your Tribe podcast. We're broadcasting from beautiful Portland, Oregon. My name is Annie Lavender Weller. I'm a member of the Turtle Mountain Band, the Chippewa Indians, and co-founder of the Leadership Lab, which is a career, academic, and transitional coaching nonprofit. I'm also a serial entrepreneur, author, and International Coaching Federation, ACC certified business coach and consultant. Welcome to my podcast, Find Your Tribe. Hi, and welcome to another episode of Find Your Tribe. I'm your host, Annie Weller. Today, I have the most beautiful, wonderful woman in front of me. Her name is Shilo George. She is a Southern Cheyenne-Arapaho. Did I say that right? I don't know why I'm having such a problem saying that word today. And a Scottish international speaker and owner of Łush Kumtux Tumtum
Łush Kumtux Tumtum
Consulting, which means a great awakening of the heart and spirit in the Chinuk
Wawa.
She has to help me. The Native American has to help the Native Americans sometimes.
So
Trade language. Her workshops and presentations explore the intersections of race, sexuality, body size, and trauma with both individual and intergenerational. She seeks to educate on systems of oppression, trauma, informed care, and proactive ways that businesses and organizations can create policies and environments that promote inclusion, diversity, and healing. Welcome, Shilo.
Thank you.
I'm so happy you're here with me.
I appreciate the invitation. It's very exciting. The first time I've been on a podcast.
It's super easy.
Okay.
Super fun. I think I'm fun. And Greg, the producer's fun.
I can tell.
Yes.
From our pre-recorded conversations. Sorry you missed out on that.
So my first question I always ask my guests, what does Find Your Tribe mean to you? Which, by the way, congratulations, you're the first Native American, other than myself, that's been on my podcast. So This is kind of funny that I'm asking another Native American, what does Find Your Tribe mean to you?
Well, I think for me, I'm maybe going to think about it in kind of somewhat literal terms. So for me, being Southern Cheyenne and Arapaho, as well as Scottish and Irish, I didn't grow up with my traditions. I didn't really have a lot of contact with my biological father, who's Cheyenne. And quite honestly, after 3 generations of boarding schools, they didn't really know much about themselves either. So this process I've been going through for almost 15 years of having contact with that part of my family again and being able to talk with my great auntie before she crossed over, I learned a lot more about our family and the history of our family, as well as the history of our people and our nation, and then how I got here to the Portland area. And I'm really involved in the Portland Native community, and I work at NAYA right now.
What is NAYA?
The Native American Youth and Family Center on Columbia Boulevard. We are not NARA.
Yes, they are not NARA.
Yes, 2 different organizations, but we do collaborate sometimes. And so, finding identity and being also very transparent and clear that I am not a traditional person. I didn't grow up on a reservation. Like, this is something that I've come to in, my early 30s. And, but I think it's still very important and to know who you are. And I always want to validate other people, who are like, I think I might be Native, or my grandma was Native. People often want to talk about those things, and I just want to support them in that, because it can really be hurtful if people are like, well, you're not that much Native, or, whatever, you're being a wannabe. And I think we should just let people be who they are. And that's not my decision. That's really up to Creator and your ancestors. So for me, finding my tribe is really literally finding information about my tribe, and then becoming part of the community here in Portland has been really important. And the work that I do and the healing process that I've been on is really anchored in the work of my ancestors and a collaboration with them.
So you're not a Oregon native?
I'm not from an Oregon tribe, nope.
No, but were you born and raised in Portland, or?
I was raised in St. Helens on Multnomah land, Multnomah territory. And so it's like 35 miles northwest of here. And
a lot of people aren't Oregonians like you and I.
Yeah. And that's a really interesting thing when people who aren't Native talk about being Native Oregonians. I think for those of us in the Native community are like, what? Which tribe? And so it can be a little confusing, but I grew up here, but I'm also a guest here because my people aren't from here.
And I'm a guest here also because my tribe is from northern North Dakota. Half our reservation's in Canada and half is in North Dakota.
Yes.
And my great-grandparents moved here to work in the shipyards and also get citizenship.
Yes.
Because they didn't have Social Security numbers. They couldn't buy property. I mean, it was the 40s. Yeah. So it was very, what's the word I'm looking at? It just was not a good time to be Native American until probably the 80s. And it's still, I mean, still, there is a lot of discrimination still and a lot of myths out there about Native people. So one of the interesting things that you said is like you didn't grow up on a reservation. I didn't grow up on a reservation either. I feel sometimes like that could add to it added to my issues of my self-esteem issues because of not being able to be part of like a clan. You know, and also my grandfather, I was raised by my grandparents, and he was very ashamed to be Native American because he wasn't allowed in bars, he wasn't allowed in restaurants. My grandmother still to this day dyes her hair blonde and doesn't talk about it. In fact, I didn't even realize how much Native American I was until I was in my 20s, until I was in college or in grad school college, when my grandfather died, and all of a sudden I had a BIA number that I've had since I was born, and I had 11 acres in Fort Peck, Montana. I had no idea that I had because my mother, being a drug addict, she was collecting the money of our kids, her kids' land, and taking that, not giving it to us or allowing us. Different story. But being an urban Native American, it was really difficult for me to connect, and it still is difficult for me to connect, even in my 40s. Have you had those same type of issues? I don't know if you'd call it issue or, I mean...
Yeah, I definitely think early on when I started to participate in the community and really didn't understand a lot of the kind of conversations that people were having and the way that people were speaking to each other and really the kind of cultural practices that are happening in the urban community here. And yeah, for sure. And I even had people question me, like, I don't think you're like Native enough, you know, and you can't come to this thing because your blood quantum's too low or whatever. And, you know, not being so new to the community, it was really hurtful. And also I was like, okay. And whereas nowadays I would just be like, whatever, you know, that's like your pain and your hurt from trauma. And that's real. And also I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. And so I think that, you know, being an urban Indian, there is like a lot of, it's a common story of struggling to stay connected to your people. And also in urban areas, like cultures kind of mix together and you sort of have these combined cultural practices that is hard because there's so much variety in our traditions. And a lot of people are like, no, like don't mix them too much because then they just become one tradition and we lose out on all this beautiful nuance and layering. So, and then you have sort of this thing between like natives who are from here, like this is their land, like Chinuk people and Kalipunya and Tualatin folks. And then you have, you know, a lot of people from the Plains region, like me and you, and others, maybe Alaskan folks. And so we have to learn how to work together in the urban areas. And so there's a lot of hurt people. There's a lot of people who are traumatized. And you're speaking of intergenerational trauma as part of your story of, you know, your mom being a drug addict and you not knowing about your culture and her taking money. You know, those are all symptoms of intergenerational trauma, and that's real. And I think a lot of people who aren't familiar with, you know, or aren't from communities that are really traumatized and maybe have experienced genocide and a Holocaust don't understand it. And I think mainstream mental health providers really think of trauma as like one experience in your life. But trauma is actually intergenerational and it can change your DNA. And so we carry that trauma in our DNA. We also carry resiliency as well from that. And so it's important if we talk about trauma, we also really need to talk about resiliency and the brilliance of our communities. But, you know, you can have like a lot of layering of intergenerational trauma and then your own trauma that may have happened in your life as well. So it can be really intense, and that's why I do part of the work I do, is to kind of help people through that and also to help myself. It's kind of a thing that happens at the same time.
So you grew up in St. Helens?
Yes.
So what was that like?
It was a pretty small town. It's gotten a little bigger nowadays. Not a lot of people of color, not a lot of diversity there, but it was a smaller community. My family was somewhat known in the community, so it was nice because there was a lot of experiences that I had. Like, I got to be in the newspaper sometimes, and I got to go to like fun sports camps or art camps. And my grandma did a lot of community theater, so I got to do that. And then also I could get away with nothing because people knew my parents too. So yeah, it was interesting. I experienced a lot of bullying and issues as well growing up, just like almost everybody else.
What happened? Or
well,
do you feel comfortable
yeah,
sharing?
no, it's fine. I mean, it's part of the story. There was a lot of issues around like my body and my body's size. And it's interesting going back and looking at photos because I wasn't really a fat kid, although there's nothing wrong with fat children. And I use the fat not as a pejorative, not as a negative, but as a political term, right? So like, queer people or someone who would use the word dyke or, natives reclaiming certain words and things like that. So I'm reclaiming fatness as a descriptor for myself in a good way. So I just want to let people know that. So I wasn't a fat kid. I was actually really athletic and loved, playing racquetball and basketball, going camping, all of those things. But there was just this constant surveillance of my body all throughout my childhood, so like being, abused as a child and then people having access to your body, obviously without your consent. And then layering on top of that, my family and others being concerned about me being fat later on in life. It was the 1980s. So there was like this kind of big focus, not all of a sudden, but definitely an increased focus on dieting and weight loss and aerobics and jazzercise. And so that was kind of the world that I was in. And so it just kind of continued into school where it was doctors, it was my parents, it was a step parent, my grandmother, like most of the women in my life were on diets. I was on a diet. And then going through school, it was just kids were cruel, right? They'll find something. And I think definitely if you're kind of female-bodied, they're going to go for weight. They're going to go for if you're pretty or not, or if you're too short or too tall or whatever. But for me, it was always my body size.
So how did you combat that? I mean, when I see you now, I see you as this like strong, confident, and I know people probably say the same thing about me. Mm-hmm. And it used to be a front, but now it is who I am. Right. I heard somebody say, like, fake it till you make it.
Yes. I've done a lot of that in my life.
It took me to my 40s, but you're younger than me.
No, I'm 40. I'll be 43 next month.
Okay, so we're the same age.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I always think that you're in your 30s. I don't know why. It's so crazy. Maybe because we look young and fabulous.
Right. I feel like my fatness kind of preserves me a little bit. Like, people often they think I'm younger or whatever, and I think that's part of our, like, happy spirits, and souls and the healing that we're doing. But also I think my fat sort of preserves my skin a little bit, and I don't have really hardly any wrinkles.
Yeah.
So, and that's fine if I did. I think elders are beautiful. So
yes. I'm just waiting one day. I'll look in the mirror and I'll be like my grandmother.
Right.
And I'll like, my grandmother's beautiful. She's very, very beautiful. But she's also had some work done too. Anyways, that's a different story to talk about. So what were your 20s like? I mean, did you stay in Portland? Did you move around? What did you do?
Well, I spent my freshman year of college in Wyoming, and that was an interesting experience. But then I came back to Portland, and I went to community college for like a year or two, and then I just stopped going because I didn't know what I was doing, and I felt like I was wasting money and time. And so I got work in a group home with people with developmental disabilities, and this was the mid-'90s. But yeah, I lived in Portland, and Portland was very different. I came out, I think I came out as a dyke in the mid-'90s because queer wasn't really a concept yet.
Queer to me is still a bad word. I know that all my gay friends, all my LGBTQ friends, but to me, queer is still like saying the N word. Yeah. It's really difficult for me to say that. But at the same time, it's really hard for me to say the word fat.
Yes.
It took me... it's still taking me time to be able to reclaim those words because queer is, not a happy-go-lucky word.
It's true. Yeah, and I think everybody is sort of in a different place of what words they like to use, what they're comfortable with. And different generations are, for sure kind of let you know where people are at because they're like using certain words. Like, and we know that in our Native community too. Some people identify themselves as American Indian, some people Native, some people Indigenous. Like, that can kind of tell you a little bit where people are at generationally. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely, queer was not a term that was used in a good way.
So you like to call yourself a dyke?
I did back in the day.
Back in the day. Okay.
Yeah, I do still sometimes. I don't know. I mean, labels are labels, like whatever. And so, yeah, I came out in like 1997. I think it was in maybe 22 or something like that. And I lived off of Southeast Cora and Milwaukee in a little like 2-level, split-level apartment, and it was 3 bedrooms, 1 bath with a garage, and we only paid like $640 a month.
Oh, I lived in St. John's. I paid $425. It was 2 bedroom, 1 bath.
Yeah.
We had a balcony. Yeah. I mean, the next door neighbor guy's car kept on getting stolen, but he kind of deserved it because he was kind of a jerk. He was a dick. We didn't care. But yeah, nobody messed with us girls. So yeah, we were fine.
Yeah. I mean, Portland was such a different place then. It literally was a very weird place. And
you could walk anywhere and wherever what you wanted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Pearl District was like industrial and kind of still kind of creepy.
Did you go to the city nightclub? Yeah.
The city? No, I never went to that.
Oh, okay. That was my thing. But I left home when I was 16. So yeah. Anyways.
Did you go to the Egyptian room? The E-room?
Yes, I did, but I never felt super comfortable there because it was very lesbian focused, and being bisexual.
Yeah.
You're kind of like in this weird limbo thing where people don't accept who you are because you can't fucking make up your mind.
Right.
And it's like, no. I fell in love with the person, and that's one of the things is Rhodes Perry, who was on earlier, and I was also on his podcast. I mean, I just kind of came out in my 40s in a way saying, yes, I'm bisexual, but really I just told people I'm Annie, and I just fall in love with who I fall in love with. And nobody questions, like, if I brought a girl home or a boy home. Nobody questioned it. So until now, which is very interesting, but that's, yeah. But it was the 90s where we could get away with anything we want to do.
Yeah, it was a very different...
Just bringing up bad memories from your room. Sorry.
Dating was a lot easier then.
Dating was horrible.
I had a good time dating in the 90s, actually.
I know I had a good time dating, but like going to the E-room, I'd be like the only girl not dancing with somebody.
Aww,
I know. Anyways, yeah. I know. The karaoke was fun, though.
Yeah.
Yeah. But there's no lesbian clubs anymore.
No, it's horrible. I definitely had a conversation with a bunch of friends of mine, I think it was a couple summers ago, and we were like, let's have a bar. And we were thinking we could have like this area where it would be all these couches in a big circle, and it'd be like maybe sunken down. It'd be like the processing pit, you know, and you have to like process all your feelings like forever because... we just have a place like a sunken down there where we could just process all of our shit and get into
girl thing.
And so luckily I like processing in life, because if not, I think it'd be hard to be in those kinds of relationships where you just are processing all the time.
Yeah.
So yeah, we had kind of some funny ideas of what we would do, but I think it would be really popular. I just have no idea how to run a bar. Well, that's the only thing.
I know some people.
I have some great ideas, though.
Yeah. It's really hard. I'll let you know that much. I was a bartender and waitress, and I know it's really hard. But hey, maybe we can start up that lesbian bar in Milwaukee, Oregon, because that's probably the only place that we could afford to have one.
I love it.
Yes.
We could do like some really cool.
We
stuff.
have to have a fire pit though, with some kick-ass food. And it has to be heated outside. Oh, and also we have to have cornhole. Have to have the cornhole. You know what the cornhole is, right?
No. What is the cornhole?
Cornhole is like the beanbags with the platform where you throw the beanbags into the hole across. I can't remember how many feet it has to be.
Is this a game?
It's a game, yeah.
Okay.
It's like a game.
Some kind of naughty sexual reference. I was like, what? Are we?
Oh my gosh! You've never heard of cornhole?
No.
You like throw beanbags in the hole. I don't know. Maybe it's been called something else.
I think
at one
it's
time.
called something else.
Okay, producer Greg, was cornhole called something else, or has it always been cornhole?
I think it's always been cornhole. Yeah. It's a beanbag tossing.
It's a beanbag tossing
I'm just
game.
the weirdo then.
Yeah.
I guess I never thought about it in a sexual way until you said something.
Oh no, I'm revealing things about myself. It's great.
That's pretty awesome, though. So, woo. Okay,
no.
so back to so 97, and you were working, and then you just finished your master's, correct?
I did.
Yeah. We both said yeah at the same time.
Oh yeah.
I finished
like
mine when I was 26-ish. So yeah, I started, but I just like hauled ass on it.
Mm-hmm.
But also I got mine in communications. So, I mean, I hate to say it, I'm glad that I got my master's degree. I wish I would have gotten it somewhere else maybe, but also at the same time, I learned what I didn't, what did I learn? I learned that I needed to educate myself more even after my master's degree. Mm-hmm. So,
yeah.
I mean, where I went to school, I mean, you went to Portland State too, but back when I went to Portland State, it was still pretty much a commuter school.
Yeah.
And I'm glad there was older people there, but at the same time, there was like white people and there was people from the Middle East. Mm-hmm. There wasn't really a lot of in between that. So I mean, the Native American Center wasn't there.
Mm-hmm. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's
benefit.
amazing now.
Yeah.
So all these cool things after I graduated came. So,
yeah.
Anyways, so you got your master's in.
Yeah. Do you want the official long title or the shortened, unofficial title that I give everyone?
Whichever one you want to give me.
I'll do both.
Okay.
So the long official title, let's see if I can get this without messing it up. A Master's of Science in Educational Leadership and Policy with a specialization on post-secondary adult and continuing education. With a further specialization in Native American, Alaska Native learning in predominantly white institutions.
Is that it?
Yeah. Well, that third part is just like what I would tack on, but the other two parts is actually what's on my certificate. And then what I usually tell people is adult learning and higher education.
So, first of all, you went back to school later.
Well, I mean, I went back and forth to school from 18 until I finished my degree, my bachelor's degree when I was 38. It's a long time, really, really long. But that's actually normal for a lot of people. And in our Native community, that's pretty common for people. It's called stepping in and stepping out because, you know, things happen in your life and you have to take a break or you learn something and you want to put it into practice, but then you come back because you need to learn more. Yep. So it's actually pretty common. So then I got my bachelor's degree in the summer of 2012 and then literally started my master's degree in the fall of 2012. So I had zero break, which I think was kind of a mistake because I was pretty tired by then. Oh, yeah.
I was so tired afterwards because I was going to get my PhD and teach. And then I was just like, fuck that. Like I did like, I think a half a semester and I was like, I'm exhausted. Mm-hmm. And that's when I started my business too, or my business was in full swing, and I was still bartending, waitressing, and had my side business and going to school. And I was like, there's no way. Mm-hmm. There's no way. I do miss college, though. I miss learning and being – because my husband just went back to school. Mm-hmm. So he's getting his post-bac and his master's in environmental engineering.
Nice.
So he has a degree in psychology, and because – what else do you do when you don't know what you want to do? You get a degree in psychology. That's what I joke with him about.
All the people listening to this have a degree in psychology. Wah, wah.
Or, I mean, what's the other one? Literary writing or writing.
Liberal arts.
Creative writing.
Might be one.
And communication. I mean, people give me all the shit you want to give me because I have a master's in communication. I mean, come on. Anyways, one of the reasons that he's doing that, though, is because of what's going on in our administration. And also, since he is in the Oregon Army National Guard, he's a combat engineer, which he had no idea what engineers really did. But he's been doing for the last 6 years, and he's really, really good at it. Really good at it, and he loves it. So he's in fact, he had his midterm, I think, today.
Ooh,
I hope
I bet he did great.
I'm sure he did, but he's been doing a lot of Khan Academy. Big woo-woo to the Khan Academy, which is amazing. I've never used it before, but he says it's really helped him elevate his math skills when you haven't been in college.
Yes.
So, going back to you for me.
That's okay.
So what did you do in between those times? Did you just were working? I know you were working at a group home.
Oh, yeah. What did I do in between my stepping in and stepping out? Yeah, I did a lot of different things. So I worked in a group home. I was a certified nursing assistant for a while. I managed a group home. And then I worked for Cascadia for quite a while, behavioral health care. And I did some residential counseling for folks who are chronically homeless and mentally ill, and then or who had mental illness. And then I worked as a residential, resource service coordinator for them and Home Forward. And it just kind of evolved. And then I ended up at NAIA in 2007 and did a lot of different things.
I didn't realize you'd been there so long.
Well, I worked from 2007 to 2010, and then I left to finish my bachelor's degree full-time. So when I was there, I did a lot of work with youth and then did some event planning, and then, which was like one of the favorite jobs I've ever had, I taught art, cultural arts in their early college academy for 2 years as well.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, so it was great. And I went back to get my bachelor's degree, and the plan was to be a high school art teacher, but that didn't quite pan out, and that's okay. But it was really, that's where I met Dr. Cornell Pee-wee Wardy, who's been a mentor for me for a number of years, and was the director of the Indigenous Nation Studies program at PSU. He's since retired just this year, but he has been a huge influence and mentor of mine and opened up a lot of doors for me. I did never think that I was smart enough to get it to finish my degree. I think that's part of it, and I didn't think I was smart enough to get an associate's degree. And then he was a great mentor to me and several other people. And then I was around people who were academic, like who had like PhDs, and I think that there's definitely something to be said about who you're around. So if you're around people who, if you want to be like a professor, or you want to be somebody who gets a master's degree, then you should probably be around people who are doing that and who have done it, if you can, because it really makes things possible. I thought, I was just like, I could never finish this degree, and I finished it summa cum laude, so with honors. I thought I was pretty stupid most of my life, to be honest, till I was like 35. Why do you think that? Well, I think that I have a different learning style, and I didn't ever test very well in math, especially. And the things when I was, in K through 12, the things that I was really good at, we didn't ever get tested on. Like, they weren't really important. Like, I'm really good at writing, or I'm really good at relationships with others. So maybe like psychology and sociology, and those just weren't things that we really had access to where I was going to high school. And I just didn't really have very good study habits. My parents never went to college, although they're lovely, amazing people. So I just didn't have the skills. I didn't have the mentorship. I didn't have the vocabulary. And that's something that's really common with first-generation college students that I didn't understand until I was older. And then I was in a, because I did CNA work a lot. I wanted to be a nurse. I've wanted to be a billion things as I've kind of gone through my career. Yeah. I tried like a billion things. So I wanted to be a nurse. And so I took like a year of anatomy and physiology. And I had this professor, it was through PCC, and he was amazing. And our tests were they were short answer, and they were about, you're a nurse and this patient comes in and this thing happens. And then you had to give a short answer. And so you had to be able to apply what you were learning to the real life. And that totally worked for the way that I think and the way that I problem solve. And I'm not good at multiple choice questions. And so I was like, wow, this is different. I'm really actually very good at this. And then I noticed that when I was studying and I was reading the text, that some of the words would literally like move around, which I know sounds weird. And then I wasn't able to remember things. And so I went to the student disability office and was like, I think there's something wrong with me. And so they didn't have money to test me, and I didn't have money to get tested, but they did give me some good study skill advice using color color. And then, they have those plastic folders where it's a color, but you can see through it. So they had me cut up one of those, the size of the text page, and I put that over the writing, and then I was able to read faster, more efficiently. My eyes didn't get tired, and so it was really the contrast of the white paper and the black ink, and then the words stopped moving around. And then I used color highlighters for the different parts of the body. So like if I was reading something about the lungs, then it would be like blue highlighter, or the heart would be red. So then when I got to the test, I would think of the color, and all that stuff would sort of filter to the top of my brain, which sounds weird, but it really worked for me. And so them just giving me those tools like made me go from a C and D, sometimes F student, to a B student, and then eventually to a straight A student.
That's awesome.
And so it was a combination of being curious about, well, if that's going to help me, what else is going to help me? So I learned about my learning style in particular and gained skills in that. And then my confidence went up. And so the kind of the combination of that and being excited to learn finally in my life, I was like, oh, yeah, I'm actually not stupid. It's that I didn't understand how I learned. And so that's one of the reasons why I got a master's degree in adult learning, is because I think there's a lot of people out there who think that they're not very smart. But the thing is that they've never been taught how they learn and how their brains work.
Yep.
And that's what I want people to do, is know how they learn so they can feel good about themselves and understand how unique and brilliant they are.
Yeah. I have lots of stories about learning and not understanding and being made fun of because there's certain words that I can't pronounce because I learned by memorization, not by phonics.
Me too. Same way.
So I know he means no harm, but my husband's like, you need to use your words, honey. And I'm like, I don't know what the effing word is. Well, I know what it is. I can say it in my head, but I just can't come out here. So I always thought maybe I should buy one of those Hooked on Phonics books or whatever and like see if that would help me. But whatever. I think that there's always something like that holds you back.
Yeah.
And really it's you holding yourself back versus really you could, like you said, go and get a piece of paper or a colored piece of paper and put over, and then you can, the words because of the paper, the black and white paper. I mean, that makes so much sense to me.
Yeah, but if you don't know what you don't know, you have no idea. So I had to go to the office and ask for help.
And that, I think that's one of the hardest things for anybody is asking for help. And I tell people asking for help is a sign of strength. It is not a sign of weakness whatsoever. So everybody out there, please ask for help. Please.
Yeah.
It'll make your life a lot easier and better, and you'll be in a better mood, and you'll be happy and more cheerful. I mean, that works for me.
I think it's also about being humble. And I think that's like definitely a part of culture and Native community that we really emphasize, is that humbleness of like, I don't know everything and it's okay that I don't. And I think that when we ask for help, and you can do it in a lot of different ways, you don't have to like go in with your head down or whatever. You can be like, I'm really excited about this thing, and I'm also finding that I don't know this or that, and I think it's kind of holding me up. Do you have some ideas for me? Like, there's all different ways that you don't have to go in and be like, I'm stupid and I don't know. I mean, make it strengths-based. I think it's really exciting when you're passionate about something you want to know more. Like, I was like, I love learning about anatomy and physiology, and I'm really struggling. How do I make this more efficient for myself? And that's how I went into that conversation. And it was great. And so, yeah, there's nothing wrong with asking for help. And definitely, like, I never thought I would. Well, I've always wanted to have my own business, and I come from a long line of entrepreneurs. My mom has her own business, and I was like, oh, I have no idea what to do. I have no idea. And so I've had to ask for help a lot.
And that's okay.
And I'm going to continue for a while, too.
Yes. My door is always open. My phone.
Wonderful.
No, I love it. I love helping people with their businesses and figuring out, because I know what it's like to struggle. And I hate seeing smart, amazing, go-getting fucking like I can't even explain, like, when we sat down and we're talking, like, how we've known each other for quite a while, but we've never like really sat down and talked to each other.
Right.
And I think for me, it was probably a little intimidation because you are really involved with the Native community, and I've been kind of on my way on the outskirts of it. It's just because of people don't realize this. I'm very shy. I'm very shy. And, also at the same time, when you've been told that you're not good enough or you're not from a tribe from Oregon, it just kind of, you just kind of shut your door and you're like, okay, well, I'm going to go over here with the people that love and accept me, and I'll just put this in a, compartment over here, and I'll maybe open it up once in a while.
Thank you for listening to part 1 of my interview with the amazing Shilo George. Part 2 will be out next week. Please remember to review and subscribe, and have a wonderful, wonderful day.
Find Your Tribe podcast is a conversation with guests addressing all aspects of what makes our businesses and personal lives unique. We will balance traditions with new methods, respecting the past while acknowledging the need to embrace new methods and technologies. Finding Your Tribe podcast uncovers the personalities behind the businesses, the leaders who paved the way, and the essential heart of what makes our tribes run. Please visit me at annieweller.com for more information.